Hi everyone, welcome to this video for D100 Space Galaxy Builder. This is episode 2, creating a galaxy, and we're going to be looking at how you go about setting up the game ready to begin. And first off is going to be creating a galaxy. So we've zoomed in and we've got a close-up on this. But first, just wanted to go over the previous episode we've done, episode 1, where we took a look at the game and we also went through details on some of the pages that you need to get printed off in order to play. So if you haven't checked that out, please do check that out. One of the most important things to do when you start playing, if you've got a captain that you created for D100 Space and you're going to bring them along, you need to transfer all this information from the old style log sheet to the new style log sheet. Once you've done that, then you're ready to actually begin creating a new galaxy. And then we'll go through some of the different operations that are involved. Okay, so what I'll do is off camera I'll get all this information of this captain transferred to the new style sheet, and then we're good to go. And then we'll go through step by step the instructions to get your galaxy set up. Okay, that's all done. I've updated the new log sheet with the old captain's information. The captain that we've got here is a brand new captain. He's never played any of the introductory operations from the D100 Spacebook. And there's a note here that says that if you don't want to use a seasoned captain, if you're bringing a brand new captain in to the Galaxy Builder, then it's advisory you go ahead and take the options that were laid out in the finishing touches section, which is instructions that allow you to bypass those introductory operations, and you add particle scoop and mining lasers, you adjust your control modifier, and then you make some adjustments to the operations log. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and do that. What we need to do is first off is add a particle scoop and a mining laser, and I'll get all this done off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll begin creating this galaxy. Okay, so that's all been updated. I've go through the changes. I've added 1,000 credits to the log sheet, and then we've added the particle scoop and the mining laser. We've changed the control modifier because our tech levels changed. We've added 4 to the complete section, and then we've ticked these first 4 operations. All the rest of the information for that upgrade to your captain is ignored, so we can ignore that. And now we're ready to really move on to actually creating our new galaxy. So the first thing it tells us to do is to take a blank hex sheet, which we've got here, and then it says in the top name box here on the top of the sheet, we're going to add 001. Okay, and that's referring to this as being sector sheet 1. So as we add more sector sheets, we'll be naming them 2, 3, 4, and we'll be putting in codes to tell us to which sector sheet that's going to point towards. So that number's quite important. And now we're going to actually generate a name for our sector. Okay, so that's done on page N, names. Okay, so I'm going to roll randomly for this, and it says in the instructions that if you're not happy with a name that's been rolled, you can actually roll again or make changes yourself. So you're free to name the sector anything you like, really. But this is a chart here. The names table is a way of generating random names if you want to do it that way. Okay, so we use the sector column. We're going to roll. I'm going to try and roll these so that the dice stay on camera. Okay, we've got 48. So I'm going to look up 48, and we've got sim. Okay, so that's not a bad start. So I'm going to add sim. And when you roll on this, you roll a prefix and a suffix. So you've always got two parts to the name. Like I say, you can change them and name them whatever you want. Okay, I've got an 82 that time. Okay, let's see what we've got. Liege, L-E-J, so Sim Liege. So these names that have been generated, they've been deliberately made to make them sound quite alien in naming them and sounding them. But if there's any name that you roll that you don't quite like, go ahead and make the alterations yourself. Okay, so that is step 1. Okay, so step 2 says with a new sector sheet you must have somewhere to store its economy. So we're gonna, tells us to take a economy sheet and add that sector name to the economy sheet. Okay, so I'm gonna add 001 Sim Liege. Okay, and later on we'll be filling all this out with information of prices and so forth, so that's quite good. And then we're going to move on to step 3. So it says you must now create your home star system in one of the 3 central hex spaces on the hex sheet. See the diagram on the right. If you can't decide, roll 1d3 to choose randomly. When you have chosen the home hex, create the star system using the adding star system rules on page 9. When you've completed the home star system, come back here and continue with step 4. Okay, so step 3, we're going to actually create our home star system where the captain begins the game from, and that begins on page 9. Okay, so we'll go through this step by step as well. So the first step is we need to determine which of these 3 spaces we're going to create our home. So I think I'm going to choose this one here, and the first thing we need to do is add the star itself. It tells us in step 1. This is going to be, the star is the main focus of the star system and where all other points of interest are in orbit. Draw a circle in the middle of the hex and draw a line through its middle for its equator. It shows you an example there as well, which you can't quite see there. Okay, and the star can be any size, but you need to leave plenty of room for points of interest around it and names, and also we're going to be putting jump lanes in as well. Okay, so let's get that bit done. There's various ways you can do this. You can draw in these star systems freehand. You could use one of these if you've got access to one of these and choose a size. You could alternate the different sizes and so forth. I found something that's quite good in a piece of plumbing equipment. That's an olive that's usually used in compression fittings, and also I found a pawn that I've got from some gaming materials left over, so I'm going to go ahead and use this as a guide to draw around. And so I'm going to place that in the center of the hex and draw around so that we've got a nice actual circular star system, and then I'm going to put a line through it for its equator. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so that is the star added. Okay, so we're on to name and plane. So the first thing to do is to name the star system, and then the next thing to do is to work out a distance marker that is from this sheet of paper. So in our galaxy everything is 3-dimensional, but we're plotting it and mapping it in 2-dimensional. So you can see on this example here we have a hex sheet, and it's showing various star systems above and below this sheet, and that's the position that we need to know. We need to know how many light years, say, that star system there is from this sheet of paper. So we call this a zero height plane. The flat sheet of paper is a 0 height plane, and anything that's above it gets given a plus height plane, and anything below it gets a minus plane value. and then that will allow us then to work out things like distances, like how far away that star system is from that star system in light years. Okay, so that's getting into the next stage. So let's first of all work out the star system's name, and you do that on page N, not page N, on table N. Okay, so all star systems within a sector are going to begin with a letter of the alphabet, and they range from letter A through to X, and this is done mainly out of convenience, but so we can quickly locate a star system without having to search for all their names. We can look for the name that it begins, the letter it begins with. Okay, so using the star systems and zone sheet, pick a letter. I'm going to pick D, and our star system is going to begin with the letter D. So you add that to the map sheet, and then we're going to roll. Again, it's a 2 roll, and if you're not happy with a name, how a name's come out, you can always roll again. Okay, so, or you could just basically choose if you didn't want to roll for a name. Okay, I've got 98. Okay, so it tells us that the prefix is OG, which is quite good, so it's going to be named dog, and then we're going to roll for the suffix, which is 76, and it tells us earn, so dog earn. Okay, so it's not too bad, I suppose. Okay, so I've added that to the star system, and the next thing is, like I say, we need to determine its position above or below, or whether it's equal to the 0 height plane. Okay, so we do that on the table, I think it's table D, distance marker. Okay, and you're going to be rolling a D100 and a D6. So if you roll all them together, and we've got 22 and 4. Okay, so you find 22 and you cross-reference it with 4. So it says it's minus 170 light years. Okay, so you add that as a distance marker of minus, oh, I've forgotten already, minus 170. So we're going to write minus 170. Okay. I'm going to write that a bit smaller, 170. Okay, so we now know that our star system is called Dog Earn, and it is minus 170 light years from the 0 plane, which is this hex sheet. Okay, so next up is step 3. It's called fret level, and we're going to determine the star system's encounter value and its fret value, and that's just really a case of rolling on table S. So let's take a look at that. Star systems section here, and we're going to make a roll. Let's see what we get. We're rolling on this fret level section here, so we've got 68. So 68 is a casual. So what you can go ahead and do is on here, is you copy that fret level. It's got minus 20 written in there. We're going to write minus 20 here. Okay, and then it tells you in the instructions to go ahead and shade that, the colour, the fret level colour, and then what that'll do is that'll build up quite a nice looking map of all different star systems with all different fret levels and colours and so forth. So, but if you don't want to do any of the shading, you don't have to. I'm going to apply the colour. I've got all these pencils that I use for D100 Dungeon and D100 Space, and I use a like a labelling machine to label up what they do. So I've got all these set up. So a case of basically it's a casual star system, so you can go ahead and apply some shading if you wish. You can be quite creative how you go about shading in these star systems. So that's that. Okay, and then the next thing is the reward adjustment. So again, it's a case of rolling on this table here, and we look at the reward adjustment here. Okay, we roll a D100 and we get 32. So it's a poor star system. And then so what you do is you put in the first letter of the star system in the below the equator. So we're going to put in a D, and then it's a -2 reward adjustment, which you also add to the star system. Okay, so that gives us those, and then the next thing to do is to add all of that information to your star systems and zone sheet. So we've got dog urn, so you add that, and it's got a threat level of -20 and a reward value of -2, and so you add those, and this is to make referencing this quicker in the game. So when you're dealing with this sheet, you don't have to keep referring to your hex sheet and so forth. And while you're at it, you can go ahead and add that to the economy sheet as well. So that's -20, -2 threat reward. Okay. The next section is about jump lanes. Well, because this is our first star system we've added to this section, we can ignore that. And then we're going to move on to light years, and again, first star system, there's no other star systems to connect to, so there's no need to work on light years. The next is points of interest, step 7. Okay, so points of interest get added at this stage around the bottom of your star system, the hex of your star system. There's a few rules. What you do is you roll on this table using this column first to tell us how many points of interest that star system is going to have, and then for each one you roll a point of interest to determine which one it is, and we'll look at that as we get into it. But there's a few rules. So the first rule that you need to do is if you generate a point of interest and then you generate it again in the same star system, you ignore that and you roll again. You only have 1 point of interest per star system, so you can only have 1 asteroid or 1 agricultural world. You can't have more than 1. Each star system may only have a military dock or a space station, never both. So you generate either or, but also each each star system must have at least a military dock or a space station. So you can only have 1, and it must always contain 1. If you generate all of your points of interest and you don't actually generate a military dock or a space station, one of those points of interest get randomly changed. So what I like to do is when I'm generating my points of interest, I do it on a scrap piece of paper first, get all the rolls made out, and then add them around the bottom of the actual star system. The next rule is if you generate a wormhole, you must determine where it will lead, and there's rules for that in naming points of interest and wormholes. And then if you want to, you can colour the points of interest. It's not compulsory. So again, all of this shading and so forth you don't have to apply, but it will make your maps look quite stunning. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is we need to generate the number of points of interest. So we do that using table S and the points of interest column, number of point of interest. Okay, so we've got 94. 94 tells us that there will be 6 points of interest. Okay, so number of points of interest 6. So let's work them all out. Okay, one other thing I wanted to just show you is, if you've been following the videos so far, you will have the details of all these game sheets that you can print off. And I wanted to point out on the bottom of the handy sheet there is a a section here called drawing the points of interest, and it breaks it down how best to go about adding these and drawing these points of interest. All the points of interest have been quite simplified in their drawing aspects, so anybody should really be able to handle this without any problems with drawing skills and so forth. Okay, so using that as a bit of a guide, let's go ahead and look at these points of interest. So we've got to generate 6, so let's roll for the first one. Okay, we've rolled a 20, so we get a gas point of interest. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is 51. Okay, so we've got a space station. Okay, so we draw on our space station. Okay, let's have a look at number 3. So now we know that if we roll another space station or a military dock, that roll gets ignored and we roll again, because you can only have a space station or a military dock. Okay, 89, we've got a moon. Okay, I don't know whether you can see all these on there, but we've got a moon. Okay, 86, we've rolled a moon again, so you ignore that roll, you roll again. So I've got 13, which is another gas planet or another gas form. Okay, 96 is another moon. Okay, so you just keep rolling. 25 is a water world. Okay, and we generated quite a lot of points of interest for this first one. 56 is another space station, so we can ignore that. 51 again. Okay, 52 again. Okay, 48 is an agricultural world. Okay, so we can add that. And then lastly is 08 is an asteroid belt. Okay, right, so now that I've got all of those worked out, what you would then do is you would add them around this on the map itself, and you'd add all the little icons. Okay, so what we're trying to build up is basically something that looks quite similar to the map that you found in D100 Space. You're trying to build up something that looks similar to this. Okay, so you can see that on this map we've got all these points of interests added around the star system. Okay, so I'll do this off camera and then we'll get back to the next step. Okay, so I've zoomed in so you can see how the star system is now shaping up. I've added all the points of interest in, and we can see them when you're actually looking at the map. You can see straight away where all these points of interest are on your map and so forth. Okay, so it's on to the next step. Okay, next up is the zones. So what we need to do is we need to translate these points of interest here onto our star systems and zone sheet. We need to determine which zone these points of interest are going to be placed in. So whether they're going to be in zone 1, zone 2, 4, and etc. So the way this works is we first need to determine which zones are going to be accessible, which ones we're allowed to place points of interest in. So what I like to do is again do this on a scrap piece of paper first of all. And we're going to roll using the this section here on this star systems and zone sheet. So let's roll. We've rolled 48. So 48 says that positions that points of interest can be placed in is zone 3, zone 4, zone 5, zone 6, zone 7, and zone 10. Okay, now for our star system it doesn't matter. We're going to place, we've got 6 zones selected now, and we've got 6 points of interest because we rolled 6 to start with. So what you can do is you can go ahead and you can add all of those points of interest into the zones that are specified, zone A, B, C, D, E and F. But what if you only had 4 points of interest? So if we only had 4 points of interest, we would only place 4 points of interest in those specified zones from A to F. We need to determine which ones we would need to place them in. And so I'll go over this because it will be useful if you don't have 6 points of interest. So you find the number of points of interest on this little chart here. This is on page 12. So if we only rolled 4 points of interest, we would then roll our D100, and using the results at the top, we rolled 35. We would look at 35 on this chart, and it tells us that out of those 6 points of interest, we've only got 4 to place. We will place them in A, B, D and E. Okay, and the C and F are ignored. So the points of if we only generated 4 points of interest, we would only use those 4 zones, and that's how you work out the position of which zones you place them in. So again, if we'd only had 4 points of interest, zone A, which would be 3, so we would get placed there. Zone B, we would place one there. Zone 6, we would place one there, and zone 7 we would place one there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to add these 6 points of interest to those zones that we worked out before. So I'm going to put one in here, one in here, one in zone 5, zone 6, zone 7 and one in zone 10. Okay, I'm going to do that off camera and then we'll get back and have a look at how it looks. Okay, so I finished updating the star systems and zone sheet. I've added these points of interest in the designated zones we was allowed to put them into, and you add them in the order that they were generated on your star system. So they follow the same pattern: gas, stars, spaceport, moon, water world, agriculture and so on. So they're all filled in. Next thing we need to do is to add names, and you do that on table N, names. And again, the names that you generate are flexible. You don't have to. You can re-roll several times if you don't like a particular name. You can make up your own, or the book on the section gives you information. You could name the planet after the zone that it's in. You could name space stations as like a base, military bases, and so forth. So there's all different choices you can make. I'll go ahead and generate the first one, and then off camera I'll do the rest, and then we'll get back to the next step. Okay, so using the points of interest column here, we'll roll 92. See what we've got. 92 is sail, S-A-I-L, and then the suffix is 57, sail 57, sailix. Okay, so not too keen on that. I might change it to sailsa. Okay, so you then write that in underneath the point of interest. So we've got salsa. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll generate the rest of those off camera, and then we'll get back and show you the results. Okay, so I've gone ahead and named all the rest of the points of interest. We've ended up with the salsa for our gas, Osforce for our space station, Widar for our moon, Fralt for our water world, Voice Star for our agriculture world, and Junis 10 for our asteroid. I've decided to add Roman numerals 10 on the end for representing that it's in zone 10 to give the name a little bit more of a twist. Okay, so that concludes naming the points of interest. We'll get on to the next step. Okay, so the last thing to do is to update the economy sheet. Now there's two ways you can play this. There is a variant, I think on page 28, called Changing Economy, and this will mean that while you're playing the game, the economy is going to be changing. When you go to a port, the next time you visit the port, it may have changed. Prices that you were used to paying or buying, selling certain goods at may have changed, and so that's called the Changing Economy rules. That's quite good for the Galaxy Builder. The other option is to not play with those Changing Economy rules, or at least get used to the game before you start using them. And then what you need to do is you need to go to table C, cargo prices. You find the star system that you're creating, its reward value, which is -2 in this case, and then you would simply copy those figures from this section here into your star system, and then you've got your starting prices for that star system, and it will remain static. But like I say, if you're going to play with the Changing Economy, which I highly recommend with the Galaxy Builder, you don't need to do that section. Okay, so now it's back to looking at how we're evolving our galaxy. Okay, so let's get on to that. Okay, so I was getting ready to move on to the next step in the creating the galaxy, but I realised I've made a slight error when we was building this star system, and that there should actually be a jump lane that comes from this star system and heads off. It's called an incomplete jump lane, and it was explained in section 5 of adding a star system. So I'm going to just show you how we do that and get that corrected. Basically, if you imagine each section around a star system as being a dice result, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is explained and shown in a bit more detail on a direction hex, which you may come across. What you need to do is you need to roll a d6, and whichever direction it points to, you draw a jump lane in. In normal circumstances, that jump lane you would then trace its path towards the direction. So if it was going in this direction, you would trace its path, and if there was another star system in its path, you would join the two together with a jump lane, and then you would go on to section 6, which is light years. However, in this instance, this is the very first time we've created a star system. We're going to just roll for this direction. Okay, so we roll a d6. Okay, so we've rolled 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it tells us that our jump lane is going to go in that direction. Okay, and so I'm going to use a coloured pencil for this, and I'm from the centre of that star system, moving along. You then draw in your jump lane in that direction that you rolled. Fine. Okay, so we're back at creating our galaxy. The next thing it tells us to do is we're on step 4, and it tells us in the direction of this jump lane that we created when we created our star system is we need to create another star system. So I'm not going to go through the whole procedure again on camera. I'll do this off camera, and then we'll get back with the results. I'll go through an update as to what happened with that, and then we'll have a jump lane between the two star systems, and what we'll do is we'll go into the details of how we actually build up the jump lane distance, so we'll come back to that in a moment. Okay, so we've gone ahead, we've made the star system here, we followed the path, and we've added this star system here. We've created one with a strange name called Huillee, Huillee. I quite like the name, so I kept it. It's got 3 points of interest. It's got an agricultural world, a gas formation, and a military dock. It was a dangerous star system with a +20 threat level, and it's got a it was quite wealthy. It's got a +1 to the reward bonus, which was a bit different from Doggern, which was poor, -2. We filled out the details on the star systems and zone sheet, and we came up with the agricultural world was called Gato, the gas formation was called Surmath, and the military dock was called Salaf 3. Well, it's quite similar naming to Salsa, so I decided to add the 3 at the end to give it a little bit of an extra name when you're playing the game, and you don't want to be getting muddled up with different names and so forth. Okay, so now what you need to do is you need to create the jump lane distance, so we'll get onto that next. Okay, so we're now going to work out the number of light years it takes to travel from this star system to this star system and vice versa using this jump lane here. And there's 2 methods for doing this, explained on page 10 under 6 light years. This is going to tell us how we're actually going to determine that value. And there's also the alternative light years rules at the bottom here, which you can use if you don't want to use this. But we're going to go through this section and work out the length of this jump lane. And it's quite straightforward. We're going to be generating 2 values. We're going to be generating a Y value and an X value. Now the Y value is the distance that these 2 star systems are apart vertically. So when you've got your galaxy and you're building it, these star systems could be and will be on different height planes. And the X value is going to be the distance between them on a horizontal plane. Okay, so to simplify that, let's take a look at these 2 star systems, and we imagine we've got our hex sheet on edge. So this is the edge of the hex sheet. Okay, so I'll write hex sheet there. Okay, in this case we've got this star system, and we've got it below the hex sheet. So it tells us that because it's got minus 170 distance marker. And this star system is above the hex sheet because it's got a plus value of plus 249 light years. So those 2 are showing there on the hex sheet. Okay, so with that, understanding that, how they're positioned, we now need to work out the distance between the 2 star systems. So that's going to be this distance here. Okay, and it's a case of adding those 2 values together. We know that that is 249 light years above, and that's 170 below. So to get that value, we need to add the 2 together. When you're doing this, you don't need to draw all this out each time. You can just follow these simple instructions that are listed here, and I'll go through them. So step 1, it says if both star systems have a positive distance marker or a negative distance marker, deduct the lower value from the higher value, ignoring the plus or minus for their Y value. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So if we had our hex sheet on edge, and we had a star system there and a star system there, they've both got the plus distance marker. So let's say that one was 50 and that one was 100. Okay, so add plus 100 and plus 50. You would basically take 50 away from 100, and then that would give you a light year distance that they are apart of 50 light years. Okay, and the same would work in reverse. If you had minus 50 and minus 100, you would deduct the 50 from the 100 to give you the value of 50 between the 2 star systems. Okay, so that's that one. Then it applies to what we drew out here. Step 2 says, or rule 2 says, if one star system has a positive distance marker and the other has a negative distance marker, and add the 2 values together, which is what we're going to do in a minute. So we'll add those 2 together. The next rule says if one star system is at a 0 height plane, i.e. it's actually sitting on the hex sheet and one is above or below, then whatever that distance marker is, that is the distance between the two star systems, and that applies above or below. And then the last thing that it tells us is that if two star systems are sitting actually on the horizontal plane, the hex sheet itself, they're not above or below it, but they're actually on it, then the distance is 0 because there's actually no vertical difference between them. Okay, so going back to this, we was at this stage where one's a plus, one's a minus, we add the two together. So it's a case of adding 249 to 170 and we get 9, 11 and 4. So they are 419 miles apart. Okay, so that is our Y value. Our Y value is 419. That is the distance between them two. 249 plus 170 equals 419. Okay. The next thing we need to work out is the distance that they are apart horizontally. So that is this distance. The distance between the two star systems that way, horizontally. Okay, and we do that by counting hexes. So we've simplified this quite a bit. Okay, so each hex is worth 100 light years. So this star system and this star system, there's 100 light years between the two of them. If there was a star system over here and we was working out the distance between, or let's say it was over here, a star system was here, we'd be working out the distance between them two. It would be 100, 200. Okay, and that makes up our X value. So in this case, our X value is actually 100. Okay, and there is a calculation for this of how to work it out mathematically, but what we've done is we've simplified this by giving you a chart to basically look it up on. Okay, and so what you would do is you would find 419 for its Y value, okay, and then 100. Okay, so you cross-reference the Y value with the H value. So we've got 419, which is here, and we've got 100 light years apart. So the distance between that point there and that point there is actually 431. So there's 431 light years between that and that. Okay, and so what you do is you look it up and you just transfer it straight onto the sheet, and we're going to put 431. Okay, and so we now know that when we travel from that star system to that star system, it's going to take 431 light years to reach. Okay, so that concludes how you work out your jump lane distance. We'll now take a look at the next step. Okay, so we're back at step 4 of creating a new galaxy. In this step we created this other star system here. We're now going to create another one, but 2 hexes away and in a random direction. We're going to use the direction hex to determine a random direction, and we're going to go ahead and roll that in a minute. This direction will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. It says that if we generate in the same direction as this star system here, this previous one we generated, then we roll for another one and we keep rolling until we get a destination in a different direction away from this star system. Okay, so let's see what we get. Okay, so we got 5, so we did in actual fact roll in that direction, so we can't place another star system here, so we're going to roll again. Okay, 1 this time, so in this direction here our star system will be here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to generate that. I'm going to put the star system in place. I'm going to generate the distance between the 2 star systems with the jump lane and so forth. I'm going to do all that off camera, and then we'll come back and go through the results of that. Okay, so we finished adding that last star system and we've joined it with this hyperjump lane. It worked out the hyperjump lane was 202 light years apart. This is 100, 200 light years apart. There was so little difference between them on the height plane. This one was minus 199 and this was a minus 170. So there's only 29 miles light years difference between them. And so when you worked it out, it added a difference of 202. We decided to call it Fine Cut, this star system. It's a -5 fret modifier, but with a +3 reward adjustment, so quite a valuable star system to add. We've got 4 points of interest: a gas, a moon, asteroid and a space station. I've gone ahead and added all those details onto our star systems and zone sheet. The gas formation was called Cyrush, the moon formation was Cernst, then Tebmoir for our asteroid, and we came up with just Para for the space station, so I decided to call it Para Base. Okay, next step is to start adding operation codes to our galaxy. So each operation that you get to perform, it might be something like mining an asteroid or searching another spacecraft, looking for something. Whatever the operation may be, it has a code. The operation's details are recorded on the back of the hex sheet, and you've got your codes listed there from 01 to 24. What we need to do as we're creating this galaxy is we need to first of all add our operation codes and where they appear. So our first operation will be in our home star system. So what you do is you write 01 for operation 1, and then in the star system that's adjacent you will have another operation, and that's got operation code 02, and then lastly the star system over here will have a code of 03. Okay, it doesn't matter where you put those operation codes in the hex, but just make sure that they're quite easily and visible for you to see. So I've written them quite big in those places there. Okay, next we're going to begin generating these operations and what they actually mean and what you will actually need to do. But before you do that, you're going to need a timesheet, because the operations will expire or could expire, and so we need a way of keeping track of time. So that you need to grab one of these sheets, the timesheet. On the back you should have all your data entries, your date entries, so that when things happen within the game you're going to be recording these on here, and then special things that occur on certain dates on the back. Okay, but for now mark the year as 3000 and put a cross through the first day on the calendar. So when you've marked off that day, you can just go ahead and ignore that trigger date there. It's a corporation trigger date, but you won't belong to a corporation, so that doesn't apply. Okay, so we've got the operation codes. We now need the details of the operations, and so we're going to start generating those next. I'm going to do the first one on camera, and then the other two I'll do off camera, and then we'll come back and take a look at them and how they worked out. For the first one, what you need to do is you need to follow the instructions of generating an operation on page 20. The generating the galaxy tells us that if we want to, when we roll on table 0 operations, we can use a D10 instead of a D100. This makes the game slightly easier to start off with, so I would suggest that for your very first galaxy that you create, do roll a D10 when you're generating these first 3 operations. Then if you end up creating a new galaxy for whatever reason, then do experiment, do try rolling straight away with a D100. Okay, so we'll do this first one first. For that we're going to turn to page 20 and follow the instructions step by step. The first step is to say selecting a star system, but we already know that this is going to be in the Doggerland star system, so we can skip that step, and it tells us to go then on to step 2, the operation number, which we'll do next. Okay, so we now need to roll on table O operations. We decided we was going to roll a D10 for the operation, and we got 1. Okay, so the operation's called mining for metal. There's a few parts to operations. There's a bit of story that's in story text that's in italics. There's a bold section which we need to record information from there onto our operation sheet, and then there's some information extra about the operation or how to select certain places within the zone, the star system, like the zone and so forth. There's a number of keywords here. When you see these keywords in these squared off brackets, it means that we need to supply our own information for those. So if we look at this one, it says there NPC. That means we need to generate an NPC. We need to do that on table N names. The other information is like zone number, so we need to either generate a zone or the operation will give us details of how to select a zone. Things like system tell us that we need to replace the name system, the keyword system, with the actual name of the star system. So in this case it's the Doggeran system that we're generating for. And to sell at the port, we've got a port keyword there, so we rename that port with the name of the actual port that's found in the star system. So we get all that information together and we'll go through it bit by bit. So we've rolled 1. The first thing to do is to write 1 in the box up here, and then we're going to read the story text. So it says NPC, so we need to generate an NPC. We'll do that in a bit. Knows the whereabouts of a small asteroid that has some remarkable metal properties. Their contacts would like to examine the metal from the asteroid and are willing to pay highly for the privilege. Okay, so that's a bit of the story of the mission, and then we need to start filling in these details. So I'm going to write down mining for metal. Okay, and it's a space mission, so it's SM, and now we need to generate an NPC. So you go on to table N, and when you generate an NPC, you generate the first name of an NPC, the surname, and then also an occupation. And the occupation will reflect sometimes it will reflect whether there's a reward, an extra reward value added to the operation or not. Okay, but for all intents and purposes, this name and surname, you're free to make up your own, or you can use the book to generate them. And again, they've got an alien theme, so there's some proper weird names in here. So you could also add in your own if you wanted. Alright, so let's generate the NPC. Okay, so I've rolled 14. Let's have a look at that. So Pirlep, P-I-R-L-E-P. So I'll write that on. Pirlep. And we've rolled 59 for the surname. Okay, 59. Surname is Herzog. So not a big fan of that. I'm going to choose Neopam. So I'm going to Pirlep Neopam. And then we're going to generate their occupation. Okay, so this role you can't change. Okay, we've got 68. So what have we got? A prophet. Okay, so we write that in, a prophet. Okay, then we go back to the operation and start filling in the rest of the details. Okay, now it says the NPC wants you to mine 1d3 metal, 1d3 times 10 metal. Okay, so we've rolled a 2, half that for a d3, so 20 metal from, and I'm going to abbreviate zone with a Z. And it tells us that if there's an asteroid in the star system, that's the zone where it will be. In this section here, it says if there isn't, then you generate a random star system, a random zone in the star system. So we can see that we've got Junis 10 in the Doggeran star system, so that's where we need to go and mine. So you'd write Z10, zone 10 in there, and sell at, and again this is going to fill in the off force over here. That's where our port is, zone 4, so you can write in at off force, Oz force. Okay. The star system's port. I'll just put port. Okay, and then the next thing to do is work out the expiry date. So for that we use our timesheet, and the expiry date is 1D3 plus 3 months. So we're going to roll that. So that's 2 months plus 3 is 5 months time, and so you would find 5 months time on this sheet here, which is 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So it would expire on the 1st of the 5th 3000, or the 5th of the 1st 3000, depending on which way you want to write it. So I'm going to put the 3rd of the 5th 3000. Okay, so next step we're going to take a look at is the location. So we write the first letter of where the mission is located here. So I'm going to put D for Doggeran in there. Okay, and then we work out the mission's bonus. So on table 0, on table O operations, the mission bonus for mission 1 is 1. So you would write that up here, mission 1. Okay. The next step is to add the star system's bonus. Okay, well the NPC bonus, but there wasn't one. So if you'd rolled an NPC and the NPC showed a modifier to the NPC's value, so some of these on the, let's show you on here, some of these occupations like a junkie has -2 NPC value, a vendor -1, and then you've got some pluses here like a senator adds +1. You would add it there, so there isn't anything for that for us for a profit, so we put a line for it. And then the star systems bonus, which you can find on the front here. So for Doggeran it is -2, so then you would write -2 there. Okay, and then you add up your reward value. So it says the reward value is a calculation of values recorded in the NPC box, the missions box, and the star systems box. Okay, they are all added together and subtracted where applicable to establish a total. So we add them up, so 1 minus 2 is actually -1. Okay, and that's our reward value. Okay, lastly what we do is we roll a d6 on table operation reward to find the success and failure values that we record in there. Okay, so if we take a look at that table, that's at the end. So this is the operations reward value. You can see you've got your reward value down this side here. Get that into camera. Minuses, minus through to pluses. We've actually got a minus value of 2, so we're rolling -1. Sorry, so we're rolling on this column here, and then you roll a d6. So I've rolled a 1. Okay, and then you write down the success for that role is 2,000 credits. So I'll write down in here 2,000 credits, and the failure is plus 35, B plus 35. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that pretty much completes generating an operation. If you complete this successfully, you'll have to take into account any crew that you've got on board. That's going to subtract from that, and if you fail the mission, then you're going to have to roll on table B with a plus 35 modifier. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and create these other missions off camera, and then we'll come back and take a look at the next steps and go through what we did for creating these two operations here. Okay, so we're going to have a look at these other two operations that we created off camera. So the first one we rolled was a 4. I'll read you what it says. It says, a warehouse was closed due to a chemical leak from a container. It has been inoperable for months now, and the shareholders are getting restless. The plant is now quite a dangerous place and has become overrun with all kinds of creatures, droids and villainous scum. The owner is looking for someone to head on in and purge the scourge that has taken control of the warehouse. So this is like a bit of a reconnaissance mission where we're going to go in and make sure that it's safe for the repair crews to go in. Okay, so that was in the Huili system. It's an away mission that uses 2 oxygen and night vision, and it says that we've got to go into zone 9 and explore for Quok Fine Cut, a weapons dealer who wants us to explore 7 red areas and kill the enemy there. Okay, and it's going to we're going to get 4,000 credits for it, and if we fail it, then we need to roll on table B plus 15. So that's table B from the D100 space rulebook. Okay, and then for operation 3 we rolled a 10. Let's see what that does. Go through what that does. So operation 10, the story is a once thriving spaceport was abandoned 50 years ago when a criminal organisation took it over. Overnight, corporations pulled out and moved resources to legally run spaceports, and after a few months the place was unable to sustain its own costs and was abandoned. A former employee of one of the corporations has some sensitive material or information stored on a data bank that was left behind, and now after all this time would like it back so it can be destroyed. Okay, so that was quite an interesting one because the actual mission expires quite quickly. We've only got 23 days to actually complete that mission in. So the other two we had a couple of months on that one, and that one was 4 months on that one. So this one will probably be the first one we go for. It's the operation's called Data Retrieval. It's an away mission that uses night vision, and it says at the abandoned spaceport in zone 3 in the Fine Cut system, collect 1 objective item for Suppi Geokig, a comms officer, and then we've got to hand that in. So when we find that objective item, that completes the operation. We remove it from the log sheet, it's handed in, and then you would receive the 6,000 credits for the reward. If you failed it, you would have to roll on table B minus 5. Okay, so that's a bit of a look at the operations, how to generate them, and how we've ended up with those 3. Next we're going to take a look at the final stages of setting up your Galaxy. Okay, so the last few stages are relating to information we've got to update to the log sheet. So it goes through, if you've got the old style log sheet, you need to update it to the Galaxy Builder log sheet, which we've already done, and we explained that at the beginning of the video. The next thing that you do is your captain begins with a 0 lore value, so you can go ahead and put 0 lore in there. And then the very last thing is to fill in these maximum characteristics. So this is something new, and it's shown on page 15 under age. So the starting maximum primary values that your captain can have is detailed depending on your captain's race. So if it's an alien, the maximum that your characteristics, your primary characteristics, can reach would be 90. If you're human, it's 80, and 70 if it's cyboid. So I'm going to go ahead and add them. We're a human, so I've got a maximum of 80. So you write 80 there and 80 there, and then there's a maximum health point value. So that's going to be 60 for a human. And to explain that a bit further, what that means is that in D100 Space the maximum was always 80. So now, depending on what race you play, that's now adjusted. So if you was an alien, you could have as high as a primary value of 90. So as you play this game, this primary value will be going up and down, and that basically sets their maximum. So in our case, we couldn't have more than 80 of primary strength, but we could have equipment, and we could have boosts in play with the time track modifier down here that would actually take that above 80. So it's fine to have more than 80 in the adjusted column and the total column, but not in the primary value. So that's as high as we can go. Okay, so I hope that explains it all. That pretty much, you're ready to then start beginning playing, and you start from the zone, your home zone, your home star system here, and so you're free to go off and exploring. You could decide to, you begin in the port, so you could decide to head off. We're starting off in Dogaran, so we could decide to go off and do perhaps any of the missions, or we could go to the water world and do some water collecting and so forth. So you're completely free to then start exploring and deciding what you want to do in the game. So I think what we do in our next video is we'll start doing that. We'll start actually exploring the galaxy, or this sector of the galaxy, to see what we can find and uncover, and we'll probably end up attempting probably one or two of these operations, and we'll look at how we go about expanding this map and how we can increase it and start adding more star systems and more jump lanes. So that's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. If you've managed to reach the end, then you're a true star, because it's quite a long video, this one. But I wish you all the best in playing the Galaxy Builder, and until next time, take care. Bye for now.